So today I want to do an update on ADHD meds because I have been on them for I think 4 months now, and I've been meaning to make an update for a while. But first I have a quick story to tell you, and while I'm doing this I'm crocheting a blanket for Sadie's birthday. I have a little bit less than a month left to finish it, and so I am doing this anytime I'm taking a break from doing something else with my hands. I'm trying to get this done because I want to make it so it's basically like a twin size blanket that she can have on her bed. She picked out the colors. She wanted it to be like a sunrise or sunset, so yeah. And also just because I do tend to think better when my hands are busy, and I especially need that today because I am coming off of a migraine and kind of being sick, and have just been super dizzy and not 100%, which is why this is going up today instead of on Monday, because on Sunday the migraine was at its very, very worst, which was when I planned on making this video, and Monday it still wasn't really back to normal, and so I put it off for another day. Usually migraines don't knock me out this much, but this one was particularly unpleasant. The story I want to tell you is, it's just something really little, but it was something that made me smile, made James smile, and I loved seeing the interaction between the kids. And so it was the other morning, and James was still half asleep, and he walked down the stairs complaining that he was having a hard time putting his shirt on, which is not usually something that is hard for him. But he said, he announced as he was walking down the stairs, "Mom, I need your help, the shirt won't go on." And he walked by Maggie as he said it, and she said, "Easy." So I'm downstairs and I hear him say that, and she says easy, and he stops and goes, "It is not, Maggie. It is not easy. Putting on your shirt is not always easy." And Maggie goes, "Easy, easy, easy, easy," and keeps repeating it over and over again. So he came downstairs and told me that, and he did think it was funny. And then he reminded me of when he was little, like really little, and Maggie absolutely adores babies in general. When James was a baby, it was no different. He was her absolutely favorite person when he was a baby, and she always called him baby. And as he got bigger, he didn't really love that, and James is our only kid who didn't have a language delay, and so he was able to make that very clear. And he started pretty young telling her that he wasn't a baby and insisting that he was a big boy, and she would just shake her head and go, "Baby, baby." I don't know. It's just fun to see their relationship as they both get older, but also really fun to see her basically joking with him, because Maggie has a really great sense of humor, and it's not always something that translates into words that other people understand and get. I guess that's why that interaction was something that just made me smile all day. But now on to what I'm actually talking about here, and that is ADHD meds. For this video, I want to kind of draw from my experience with antidepressants, ADHD meds, and also being a mom who has 5 kids who have ADHD, a husband who has ADHD, I have ADHD. Not all of us take medication. It can be really, really helpful. It can be absolutely life-changing, and sometimes it doesn't work the way that it should. And so that's kind of what I want to talk about today, both how helpful and life-changing it can be, and also how hard it can be to both get access to it, and also how hard it can be to find the right medication, because it's not as simple as just getting a prescription from your doctor and filling it and taking it. The right medication for one person may not be the right medication for someone else. And the thing about ADHD meds is that if you're on the wrong medication, it can be pretty horrible. So finding that right medication is really important. And sometimes, in my experience, especially with younger kids, there isn't a right medication. So it's not just an easy answer. I want to start with what it's been like for me. I finally got to see a psychiatrist. It took me calling 9 different offices that took our insurance to find someone who is accepting new patients, which is a huge problem, I think, at least where I am, in that, okay, so you have ADHD. In my case, I'm also autistic, for anyone who's new here, so is everyone in our family. We've all been diagnosed. I have a real aversion to making phone calls and calling 9 different offices and jumping through all the hoops and then being told, oh, we're not taking anyone right now. It was just very, very frustrating. So I finally found a psychiatrist. I liked him a lot. We talked for a long time the first time, and he said that he wanted to try Focalin, which is kind of like Ritalin, but not. It's dexamethylphenidate is the generic name of it. So we tried it at 5 milligrams at first, a really low dose. And even just taking 5 milligrams at first was life-changing. The things that I expected it to do, like helping me focus, making me less impulsive, those were there. It helps with all of those things. But the biggest thing that I saw, that I noticed right away when I started taking it, was that I didn't realize that every day, everything that I do, even things I like to do, I feel like there is this general aversion to starting. And as soon as I started taking the Focalin, that was gone. I actually saw a sink full of dishes and I wanted to do them. And I don't love or hate doing dishes, but I wanted to get that done so it wasn't bothering me. I wanted to do laundry. I wanted to vacuum. I wanted to sit down and work. I wanted to do everything. And so just this general resistance to, I don't know if it's transitions to starting something that I need to do, that was gone completely. Didn't stay gone completely, but in the beginning, and with every single time I've gone up and had it increased, that is the first and most dramatic thing. It's amazing. And I love that first honeymoon period of about a month. It's about a month to a month and a half for me, when each time I had it increased from 5 to 10 to 15. And I read that 20 is about the top dose. I'm cool with staying at 15. It's become less effective. And each time after about a month and a half, it became probably about half as effective as it was at the beginning. And then they would increase it and it would be amazing again. I just felt like my brain worked so efficiently. All the things that I didn't want to do, again, that were things that I enjoyed, that there was just this general aversion to, they became easy for me. It was just like a lot of resistance in my life felt like it was gone. And then that goes down to about 50%. So there's definitely more of I don't want to do this, but I need to, and I do it. And where I am right now at this moment, I'm really happy with that. The other thing was that my depression scores and anxiety scores went from 12 to 6. Basically, they were cut in half, which I didn't expect. It's not something that even my SSRI was capable of doing, and eventually I would like to try going down on my SSRI and see how that goes, because it does make me wonder how much of my depression is depression and how much of it was just totally uncontrolled ADHD. I have a love-hate relationship with my ADHD. There are a lot of things that I don't like about it, but I also like things about it. I really wanted to try meds, but I was also nervous about starting taking meds because I was afraid that I would lose the things that I like about it. I've never been totally sure about how much my ability to hyperfocus was ADHD, and how much of it is being autistic. I think it did make it a little bit harder when I started taking the med. Made a lot of things easier, but being able to get into one of the things that being able to hyperfocus on things that interest me has really helped me out on for my entire life is writing. Being able to sit down and just lose myself in my writing and write for hours and hours and completely lose track of time. And I didn't want to lose that. I feel like it made it harder to get to that place, but once I was there, it was the same. I still was able to do the things that really interested me and that I really loved. I haven't seen any really negative side effects with this. The only negative thing has been how much the effectiveness does go as my body gets used to it. I sleep better, which is not something that I expected because most of the side effects I've heard were that it affects sleep, that just about all stimulants affect sleep. Before, I almost always woke up over and over again all night long. That hasn't happened since I've started taking this. I'm really glad that I was able to finally get this prescribed. After 3 months, my psychiatrist left the program. It was actually through the place that I've been seeing a therapist for a year, and that's how I finally got in to see someone. But they didn't normally have a psychiatrist, and it was a trial period, and when the trial period ended, he left. And so there's no longer a psychiatrist there, so it's transitioned over to my regular doctor. And again, it is frustrating how hard it is. Now that it's all set up, my regular doctor feels comfortable prescribing it, but it's still definitely not easy. I have to see him in person every single month, which is something that's hard for me to fit in. Just every additional appointment, since I'm taking the kids to appointments, since I'm doing all these different things, it's hard to add an appointment that's every single month for me in person. I also have to go and get drug tested every month. And when I asked my doctor, I was like, because he'd written down when I took my last dose. And I said, well, I'm going to take it tomorrow. Is that going to be a problem? It's not going to be like it's too much. I didn't think it would be because this is the med I'm being prescribed. But I just, it was something that I knew would worry me if I didn't ask the question. And so I did. And he said, actually, no, we're not drug testing you to see if there's other drugs in your system. We have to drug test everybody to make sure that you're taking it and not selling it. It's like, so yeah, I understand the need to make sure that stimulants aren't easily out there. They're always going to be out there as long as there's a demand for them. And I think there'll pretty much always be a demand for them. It's just something that is a problem, but it also is just something that is it's another barrier that makes it harder to get. And it's also sort of like, perpetuates the stigma against ADHD meds that those of us who need them, they are life-changing. And it's just, I hear people talk about how easy it is and how they're prescribed so easily. And that absolutely has not been my experience, both as a parent and as a person with ADHD, and watching my husband, who it took him years before he was prescribed medication for his ADHD. Honestly, watching Paul go through the same thing when he was in law school, and he went through all of law school and took the bar without ADHD meds and passed. But it was so much more of a struggle than it had to be, which is just something that's incredibly frustrating because you have people who with ADHD already struggle with executive function and actually making these appointments and going through all the steps and jumping through all the hoops. And then, it just feels like there's a lot of unnecessary barriers, and it's still getting out there to people who aren't supposed to. I feel like they make it so hard to get to for people who actually need it. Well, it still obviously gets out there on the black market. That is something that is super frustrating to me. Now, as a parent, I also want to talk about it from a parent's point of view. As I said, not all of our kids take it. In fact, only 2 of our kids take it, 3 don't. With one particular kid, we did try Adderall, Focalin, and saw an increase in anxiety, but more than that, so much more than that, this particular kid lost 10 pounds that they absolutely couldn't afford to lose in 1 month on Adderall. And so that made it very clear to us that that was not the right medication. And you know what? If the cost is going to be too high, it's just something that you have to balance. I have one kid that, after many recommendations from doctors and really resisting ADHD meds, we tried it when this particular kid was 7, and it was a nightmarishly horrible experience. They felt horrible and never wanted to take them again. And the psychiatrist that we saw at the time said that that wasn't something that was super uncommon to see, that a lot of times kids with ADHD like what our particular kid at the time called their wildness, and don't want don't want to take a med that's going to tamp that down considerably. Years and years later, when this person was much, much older, we negotiated because I thought it could be really helpful to try it. Just at this point, I hadn't tried ADHD meds myself, but I'd seen how much they help Paul focus and do things and function. And so we negotiated and said, we will try 1 month, we will try a low dose, and you can decide. I just want you to try it and see what it's like. And this particular kid tried it, and doing schoolwork went from, because this was during the pandemic, went from 6 hours a day to 3 hours a day. And it was just so much easier. They always had great grades before and after. It just made everything easier. And this particular kid was like, yeah, I want to keep taking it when they're in school. They don't take it on breaks. And there is a noticeable difference for all of our kids who take it, they are bouncing off the walls and able to focus, because when they don't take it, they are bouncing off the walls. And then for our other kid who takes it, we tried Adderall, super, super anxiety, not good, even though it made schoolwork much easier. And so we tried Ritalin, and a low dose of Ritalin made so many things easier, reading, everything, school, and didn't put their anxiety through the roof. So I feel like it's something that can be helpful. It's also something that can be really bad if it's not the right match. And that's why we haven't, even though based on their ADHD, our 2 youngest kids could absolutely be taking it. Their doctor gave me the choice, and I've said, no, let's wait and see. Because for me, for younger kids, especially for younger than like 8 or 9, but honestly, I like to wait as long as we can. So as long as school is going okay and it's not affecting their schoolwork overly, the risk isn't worth the benefit for me at that young age. And I think it's going to vary. And the thing that we talked about the most with Tessie, she doesn't take anything. We talked a lot with her doctor about whether or not it would be less dangerous, whether or not she might climb less, because she climbed the very first week of school up onto something very, very high. Her climbing can be a safety issue. So if she was on ADHD meds, would it make that less likely to happen? Maybe. I don't actually think it would make that big of a difference. And the risk that it would be bad for her mental health and that she wouldn't be able to tell us is just way too high for me. And that's why we opted for not doing anything at this point in time. Maybe when she's older, we'll try something. We have to wait and see. That is definitely something I take month by month, year by year. And I do push it off for as long as I can, but because, well, I feel like there's a huge benefit to the side effects with younger kids, both in my personal experience and from talking to doctors and reading about it, is that there do tend to be more side effects when kids are younger. So for us, waiting as long as we can, even though knowing there's going to be a benefit, is what we've chosen to do. So that's my ADHD med update. I wish that they were easier to get and really even less stigmatized in the healthcare profession for people who actually need them. One thing that I found myself thinking about the other day was that in a different society, maybe I wouldn't need them, but this is the society we live in, and in order to function and do everything that I need to do and not be totally stressed out, because this is something that has made my anxiety and stress level go so far down, they're super helpful. I know if you're watching this and you're interested in ADHD or you have ADHD, you've probably heard like that we would have done really good in a hunter-gatherer society, and that's what ADHD, that's where people with ADHD thrived, because that's where the skills that we tend to have, being really anxious when things are calm and really good when things are all falling apart, that we would be better in a society like that. And maybe that's true, but that's not the one that we have. And so I'm thankful to have found, at least right now, something that works. I'm really hoping it continues to work. So that's my update. I hope it was helpful to at least some people. Probably my biggest advice that I use is not to keep yourself or your kids on something that makes you miserable. There's a lot of different choices out there. There are a lot of wrong fits. When I took guanfacine, I felt like I was going to die every day. It was horrible. And we've seen different meds with different people in our family that were just fantastically bad fits. And a lot of times when you take that away, life is so much better, and you don't want to get stuck thinking that it's hard to get a new meds prescribed, and so it can be hard to give up on the idea that something might work. Don't get trapped into using something that makes you or your child miserable, because the wrong ADHD med can be just horrible, and you don't want to do that, and you don't want that for your child either. Anyways, I hope that's helpful. That's it for today. If you like this video, I would love it if you hit that thumbs up button. If you didn't, you can hit the thumbs down button. My plan is to post on Friday, and we will see if that actually happens. I'll see you next time.